There's a certain magic that happens when we train our brains to focus on the good. Not a surface level kind of magic. Not something that asks us to ignore what feels heavy or hard, but a quieter, deeper shift. Almost like turning the lens on a camera. It's the same landscape, just held in a different light. We are not neutral observers of our own lives. Our brains are constantly scanning, sorting, deciding what deserves our attention. And for thousands of years, they've been trained to look for danger. That's what kept us alive. Every rustle in the bushes could have been a threat. Every shadow, something to avoid. That negativity bias, that fear, it's still part of us today. So when your mind lingers on what went wrong, what you said imperfectly, or what might fall apart, it doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It is just an old protective system doing its job. Here's where it gets interesting though. Our brain is incredibly adaptable. It changes based on what we give our attention to. This ability, called neuroplasticity, is the ability to strengthen certain pathways and soften others simply through what we practice noticing. This is where glimmers come in. Glimmers are the opposite of triggers. Instead of setting off stress or unease like triggers, they are small sparks that create a sense of calm, safety, or quiet joy. And they're often very subtle. They can be sunlight falling across a wall, the smell of freshly made coffee, leaves moving gently in the wind, a moment when you feel, even briefly, that you are exactly where you're meant to be. They're so small that they're easy to miss, which is why it matters to look for them. When we intentionally start noticing these small, good moments, we are teaching our brain a new pattern. We're telling it, this matters too. This is safe. This is good. Keep this. Each time you pause and let yourself feel one of these moments, even for just a few seconds, you strengthen neural pathways connected to calm and well-being. This doesn't happen overnight, but slowly, the brain begins to change. It becomes quicker to notice what's good, quicker to settle, quicker to return to balance after stress. It's a bit like tuning a radio. At first, there's only static, but with time, the signal becomes clearer, and what's remarkable is that this doesn't just affect the mind, it affects the body too. When we focus on glimmers, we activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the part responsible for rest and restoration. The heart rate slows, breath deepens, and the body receives a message that it is safe. This is the opposite of the fight or flight state many of us spend so much time in, often without realizing it. So by noticing small moments of beauty or calm, we are quite literally helping the body breathe again. There is something important to mention though. This isn't about forcing positivity. It's not about ignoring what's difficult or telling yourself everything is fine when it isn't. It's about allowing both to exist at the same time. Acknowledging what's hard and still making space for what is soft and good. Maybe the day feels heavy. Maybe you're tired. Maybe you're carrying something you can't put down. And still, somewhere in that day, there's a glimmer. Maybe in the warmth of a cup of tea. Maybe in a soft sweater. Maybe in a moment of quiet. And when you notice it, you're not denying the rest. You're simply widening the frame. zooming out, so to speak. Over time, this can become a gentle habit. Not something you have to force yourself to remember, but something that your mind begins to do on its own. Collecting small moments, holding them a little longer, and letting them matter. Maybe you begin with just one a day. One moment where you pause and think, this is good. And you stay with it for 10 seconds, not just thinking it, but feeling it in your body. Because that's where the shift happens. Not only in thought, but in the experience. And slowly, the inner landscape begins to change. Not in a way where everything becomes light, but in a way where there is more space, more steadiness, more capacity to be with what is, without being pulled completely under. And maybe that's the magic we started with. Not changing the world around us, but changing how we see it and how we feel it. So the next time you step outside or sit down with a cup of coffee or notice a small warmth in your chest, try to pause. Because maybe this is one of those moments, a glimmer. And maybe your brain is slowly and quietly learning to see them too. I would love to hear what glimmers made themselves seen in your life today or this week. Is looking for them something that comes naturally to you? Or is it something that you're still working on intentionally searching out? My name is Sandra. I'm from Iceland, although right now I'm visiting the US. And I'm building an intentional, mostly handmade wardrobe slowly and quietly over time. On this channel, I share my journey to this more sustainable handmade wardrobe, as well as my thoughts about clothing, self-image, and other musings about life. If you're new here, welcome. And if you're returning, welcome back. Thank you for staying, and thank you for being here. I'm so happy that you decided to stay with me after the introduction and join me for this podcast part of the episode. So starting with what I'm wearing, I am wearing my Sóley sumartoppur, which I've been knitting in, I think, my past episodes, like I think all of them, or maybe just the last two. But it took quite a while to knit, which is fine because I prefer knits that take a while. I feel like we've been so conditioned to instant gratification with everything that we do that projects that take a while usually bring me more joy, which is why 3mm needles are my favorite. But I'm wearing the Sóley sumartoppur, and this is the way it's intended to be. But I also wore it yesterday as like a vest when I took my project photos, and I really like that. It's beautiful over a dress with the backside front because the back is open. I will insert some clips here of what it looks like when I'm wearing it, both the way that it's intended to be and also the other way. And I also am going to share a bit about how I block my knits, because I had some questions on one of my videos about how I wash my knits. And a quick answer to that is just if you look at the instructions on the yarn that you're using, usually it's different depending on what yarn you're using. So I would always recommend going by that. But generally, like for this yarn that I used in my Sóley sumartoppur, which is Holstgarn Coast, it's a 50% wool and 50% cotton. I just filled the sink here with warm water, and I don't have my wool soap with me, so I just use some shampoo because wool is essentially just hair. And I prefer using that instead of like trying to put some detergent pods or something like that to dissolve. I think that's such a harsh chemical that I always use a wool wash when I'm home, but here I used a shampoo. And I dissolved that into the water before putting my object in, just so that I would make sure that it's not felting. I also make sure to blend the water so that there's no like pools of different temperature, because that could also cause felting. So before I put the object in, I just make sure that everything is the way it should be. So no stagnant pools of warmer or colder water, and the soap has been dissolved. And then I just put the garment in, make sure that it's submerged, and I leave it there for at least 20 minutes. I think this time it was probably more like 40 minutes because I sat down and watched some YouTube and then I forgot that I had this in the sink blocking. Now, if I had been at home, I would have just taken it out of the sink and squeezed as much water as I could, making sure that I pick it up carefully so that I don't stretch anything. So carrying, holding the whole thing almost like holding under the bottom of a baby, so that nothing stretches too far. And at home, I would put this in my washing machine for a spin cycle, a short 10-minute spin cycle. But since I'm here and there's a communal laundry room, and I can't really do anything with the settings on the machine and other than just picking hot or cold or warm or something like that, then I just put it on a towel and I rolled it up, and then I step on the towel to squeeze as much water as I can out of the garment. Then I lay it on the bed. If this was a lace garment or something that needed to be blocked to dimensions, I would have pinned it so that it would keep its shape. But since this is not such a complicated garment, I just made sure that it was flat and all of the creases were out, and it would dry in a manner that I wanted it to. I actually changed the cast off edge at the bottom to an I-cord edge just to match the collar and the arm lining, like the armpit lining. And I really like the way that came out, so I needed to make sure that that didn't roll in a way that I wouldn't have liked. So yeah, and then I just left it there overnight, and it was dry around noon the day after. So that is my way of blocking, and I know that not everyone feels that it's necessary, but I just feel that it changes so much in the garment. I'm going to put a B-roll clip over this as well with, what it looked like before blocking and then what it looks like now after blocking. And for me, this is such an essential part of the project. It makes everything lie more flat and it evens out the stitches, and yeah, I just think it just gives it that extra touch. I always feel like skipping blocking is like when people skip making a swatch, and it always makes me so confused. I feel like, when you do a project, it's worth doing well, and the 10, 20, 30 minutes, however long it takes to do the swatch, I feel like is time well spent, because it's so frustrating to have to unravel a whole project because the gauge didn't match. So yeah, those are my thoughts on blocking and gauge swatching, I guess. So my finished object is this Sjóli sumartoppur that I've been working on for a while for Icelandic designer Ásthildur Hula on Instagram, and I will link that information in the description. What I'm knitting on, I finally cast on my Veronica tee, and I'm really enjoying the way that this is knitting up. It's not a complicated knit, but it does have some increases both on the right side and the wrong side. So I was asked in one of the comments on a previous video if I thought that this was a beginner-friendly pattern, and I think that I replied saying that I am not sure because I haven't started knitting it, but I would give you an update. And if you are a confident beginner, I would say that this is beginner-friendly, as long as you know how to knit and purl and make left and right increases. both on the right side and the wrong side. It actually does have a detail here as well, like the raglan, or it's not a raglan stitch. Like there's a detailing on the shoulders with a twisted rib. So you do that on the right, like when you're knitting on the right side and the wrong side. So you do also have to be familiar with that, but it could be very easily substituted with just a normal rib and not a twisted rib. A normal rib, you just go into the stitches as normal, and a twisted rib, you are knitting or purling into the back loop. So I would say it's not complicated as long as you are confident knitting and purling and making increases. I'm almost done with all of the increases on this back piece, and then I will be picking up, like I will have to knit this to I think 15 centimeters, and then I will be picking up stitches here for the front panels and here for the other one, and making a V-neck. I decided to make the V-neck option of this. So yep, I'm enjoying this very much, and as I've mentioned in my other episodes, this is being knit from the bamboo linen yarn from Hex Dye Works, which is one of my favorite summer yarns. I enjoy knitting with it. Sometimes I feel like when I'm knitting with plant-based fibers, they're hard on my hands, but this is not. So I really enjoy this yarn. I went to a yarn shop last week with my sister. They had a movie night. There was a knit night there where we were watching Miss Congeniality, which used to be one of my sister's favorite movies. Like I don't know how many times she watched that as a teenager. So it was really fun to go and watch Miss Congeniality with a group of knitters and crocheters and just fiber people. I love when yarn shops and just other shops make the effort, like make a conscious effort to make a community around their craft. It's so important for us to be able to seek out companionship with people who align with our interests and our values and things like that. It's one of the the core needs of humans is to belong to a group. Of course, it used to be dangerous to be alone. We couldn't hunt alone and we couldn't protect ourselves alone. And we still, like our DNA still remembers that it's dangerous not to belong to a group. The name of the shop is Creativity, and it's in Largo in Florida, which is roughly like a half-hour drive from where I'm staying. So it was, I guess in the States, that's in the neighborhood. In Iceland, I would have been like, wow, I had to drive 30 minutes to get to a yarn shop. But that's the difference, the cultural difference, I guess. So I would like to show you what I bought, because I saw this yarn there. I didn't plan on buying anything, but I saw some yarn there that, like, when I looked at it, I thought this is, like, I have the perfect pattern for this in my head. I have I bought this yarn, 3 skeins of this Malabrigo Shuro, which is a 25% linen, 25% merino, and 50% silk. And you can see how well this is going to drape. My sister was knitting a top out of this same yarn in a different color, and like seeing the way that it drapes and seeing the way that it lays is just, I fell in love with this yarn. And this is my favorite color is this like golden yellow. So I decided to buy 3 skeins of this, and I'm going to make a sunshine top by Icelandic designer Gunnhildur, who is Vinta Knits on Instagram, and I will put her information as well in the description. I test knit this tee 2 years ago, I think, 2 or 3 years ago, something like that. And it's a beautiful tee with like this almost like sun rays coming out. And it's absolutely beautiful. It's been probably one of my most used tops. And I made it out of just 100% merino, which is great because it's really holding its shape well, but it's so warm that sometimes it feels too much. So I'm hoping that this will be perfect for a summer top, and also just under a sweater. like under a cardigan or something like that for the winter. So I'm super excited to cast this on when I'm further along with something else. I also bought this yarn, and you can see like when I hold this skein, it doesn't drape as much. So like the difference between this one and this one, you can see that this one's going to drape a lot and this one's going to hold its shape. This is actually a sock yarn from the Fiber Co. It's called Amble, and I think that she said that this is discontinued. But it's made out of 70% wool, 20% alpaca, and 10% recycled nylon. So I'm hoping that if I do manage to cast on just to start this while I'm here, then I might go back and get maybe 2 more colors of this for socks, because I think like this feels like a woolly sock and not like the merino sock yarn that I usually use. So I'm super excited to try this, and really sad that it's been discontinued. So those are my acquisitions. Well, those are my yarn acquisitions. I've also been sewing a bit. I don't remember if I had finished my all-day culottes mock-up on my last video, or if I had finished my low bib pinafore in my last video, but I've finished them now, and I'm actually wearing my culottes right now, and I think you can see it in the video that I put of this Cholet top. So my fabric came in 2 days ago, and I washed it and ironed it, and this is my beautiful stack of fabric. I always find it a bit difficult to shop for fabric online because you can't, like, you can't feel it. So this top part, which is Willow Mist brushed bull denim, like, I don't know if it was just lost in translation in my head, but I didn't realize that this is so thick and like not drapey at all. And of course, like when I think about it now, I'm like, well, it's denim and that's the same as jeans, but that was just lost on me when I was ordering this. So this is a very stiff fabric. I was planning on making another pair of all-day culottes from this, but I'm not quite sure if this is going to be too heavy. So I will see when I finish making the other ones if this will be something else. I also got this Moss Small Gingham Stonewash Linen, which has a nice drape and will be a foundation dress by Thread and Sprout. And I got this Brass Cotton Linen Twill to make another pair of all-day culottes by Matchy Matchy Sewing Club. The other thing that I wanted to discuss is Me Made May is coming up. I think tomorrow is May 1st. And I am hoping to participate in Me Made May. Of course, I don't have too many items with me here, and I will be here until the 14th. And then, you know, after I come home, then I can show more of my makes. But I am hoping to be able to wear at least one Me Made item every day and share either a post over on Instagram or a reel, like a short here and a reel on Instagram, just depending on how my mood is and how productive I manage to be. Whether I have the mental capacity to make a short reel or a short, or if it's just going to be a photo. I still feel like photos are much easier for me to do. I'm still having a bit of issues with like the focus in my videos going in and out and in and out. So this is the second time I'm recording this podcast. So yeah. The last thing that I wanted to share is a little bit about my glimmers this week. It's been a great week, and I've really, like, I don't really have to make much effort to notice all the glimmers anymore. It used to be much more of an effort, but this week I've been mesmerized by the play of light and shadows, both in like when I've been walking outside, when the sunlight is coming through like the palm trees and the shadows are moving. It's just sometimes when I'm walking, I just stop and stare and look and think, you know, how amazing is it to be on this planet where these things exist. And then I had the privilege of spending a lot of time with my niece this week. She's 18, so I'm feeling really privileged that she actually wants to spend time with me. And she has come over, like she came over early in the morning a few days ago, and we walked over to a coffee shop together and had coffee, and I knit and she was reading her book. And then in the evening she came back here after work and I was ironing my fabric and she was reading her book, and we just sat in companionable silence, and oh, it's been so good. I feel so privileged when I'm here that my niece and my nephew want to spend time with me. I know that that's not a given, and especially not when you're 18. I mean, I'm 44 and it's not a given thing that she wants to spend time with me, and I feel so happy about that. Yeah, and then another glimmer was coffee at this coffee shop that I just discovered in the neighborhood. It takes me about 20 minutes to walk there and 20 minutes to walk back, which is like the perfect length of a walk. And usually I'm very, very picky with my coffee, as you've probably gathered from my videos. I actually brought coffee from Iceland over because I still haven't found a brand that I like here, and usually when I go to coffee shops, I don't like the coffee because it's not strong enough or the taste is off or something. So I went to this coffee shop and I didn't have very high expectations, but the coffee was amazing. Oh, it was so good. It was like going to a coffee shop at home and getting my normal order of coffee. It was perfect. It was like one of those moments where I was like, ah, okay, I can get this here. This is good. And then my last glimmer is that there's the eagle pair that I've talked about before has been teaching their fledgling. I think it's called a fledgling. I'm trying to trust my instincts on English, like their baby bird. They've been teaching their fledgling or baby bird how to fly. So like one of them will stand on the roof of the building next to ours, and the other one is just flying around like crazy and pushing the baby eagle away so that they fly. And when they're coming back, like they're flying frantically, like, trying to keep themselves in the air. And when they fly back to the roof, usually they're like crashing into their parent, and the big eagle is like, oh. And so the only thing that I feel is missing, I feel like I'm watching a documentary. So the only thing I feel like is missing is just like David Attenborough narrating in my head. So it's been great. So these are my glimmers for this week. And I hope that you've had some glimmers of your own. I would love to hear your thoughts if this is something that you're interested in hearing about, or also if it's not. I would like to know, like, if you would, like, for example, like, would you prefer for me to split these videos, like to have like a separate one that is like the introduction video is separate from the podcast video? I don't know. I would love to hear your thoughts. This is something that's been rolling around in my head, whether I'm overcomplicating things and people maybe don't want to hear it. So I would love to hear your thoughts. Would you like to have like this two pieces of content separated or together? I would love to hear. So that's all I have to share for this episode. Thank you for staying and thank you for being here. I'm blown away by the response to this YouTube channel that I started on April 1st. Just in case that it was a total flop and terrible, then I could at least just say it was a joke. But this has been going great, and it's so much better than any expectations I could have had. So I'm really grateful that you're here. I'm grateful for all of the interactions, and I'm just grateful for you. Thank you for being here. If you would like to follow me on Instagram, I will put my information there for that as well in the description, and maybe on the screen if I've figured out how to put text on my screen and not just photos. So yeah, I'll see you soon, hopefully next week.